Good evening, church. Good to see you again. Got a phone call from my daughter Tabitha up in Toledo yesterday. She had a friend and her husband who lost a baby. The mother got sick again and had to go back in the hospital after delivering, and the little boy died at a week old. His name was Miles. And it just didn't sit well with me. It just bothered me. So I wanted to share that with everybody tonight. And maybe Tabitha could direct them to this this video, and maybe this will help them. Okay. It also answers some questions for us about what happens when a child dies. What goes on. Okay. So turn in your copy of Scripture to 2 Samuel 12. And we're going to start about verse 15b, the second portion of verse 15. Set this up for you. David and Bathsheba had their time together. Uriah came home. David was frantic about keeping that hush-hush. So he sent word back with Uriah that Joab was supposed to put him on the front line, so in order he would be killed. So they pulled back. Uriah was killed. Then David brought Bathsheba into his house and married her and thought everything was good. And then the prophet Nathan shows up and tells him a little parable about a rich man who had flocks and herds, and then one poor man who had a lamb. One little lamb, and this lamb was so gentle and so loved by the family, it actually ate from his table. So the rich man had a visitor to come in from out of town, so he didn't want to take one out of his flock, so he took that poor man's lamb and killed it, and they had a feast. And David said, "Who is this man?" He was living. "Who is this man? He should be killed." And you've heard the phrase, "You the man?" Well, that's exactly what Nathan said to him. "You the man. You're the man." Okay? So that's not a good term to use. So try not to use that to refer to people. But he told him that his life would be spared, but the sword would never depart from his hand, number one. Number two, there would be an enemy that rise up out of his own house and take his own wives for himself. And three, that because of this sin, nations would ridicule Israel and the God of Israel because of this. And the child would die. So verse 15b starts as this: "And the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife bore to David, and it became ill. David therefore pleaded with God for the child. And David fasted and went in and lay all night on the ground. So the elders of his house arose and went to him to raise him up from the ground. But he would not, nor would he eat food with them. Then on the seventh day it came to pass that the child died. And the servants of David were afraid to tell him that the child was dead. For they said, 'Indeed, while the child was alive, we spoke to him, and he would not heed our voice. How can we tell him that the child is dead? He may do some harm.'" David was a man of war. Okay, he could be kind of volatile. So when David saw that his servants were whispering, David perceived that the child was dead. Therefore David said to the servants, "Is the child dead?" And they said, "He is dead." So David arose from the ground, washed and anointed himself, and changed his clothes, and went into the house of the Lord and worshipped. Then he went out to his own house, and when he had requested, they set food before him, and he ate.